Cool. So I think we are kind of getting till the end of our conference, and we have the last talk, and we are going to switch back to coding if people are interested in that. And our next speaker is going to be Ignat, and he's going to talk about the new stuff that we have in ASP.NET and Entity Framework Core. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you again. Not again, the first time, sorry for that. And nice to meet you. Thank you for inviting me. It is very interesting to be here.
Okay, Andre. So I would give you a moment to introduce yourself, and and then we can start the topic.
Yeah, I will share my screen because it's better like this. And I will start. On Entity Framework Core 7. And this is me, and I have a blog, as all the programmers I think that they should have. I was and I am an ASP.NET forum moderator, and I am very fond of roasting code, source code generators. I have also found monthly meetings and free books with roasting source code generator examples. But let's go to agenda and see what's new in ASP.NET 7. I have put here the link from Microsoft, and what I want to say is that no way in an hour we can resume everything that Microsoft has done to ASP.NET Core 7. I have put here just the points that are very interesting to me, and I have used in some of my application and want to use also at my work. So let's see what is new in ASP.NET 7 and you should adopt. So let's see first typed results. So typed results, it's a new way to present the results of a web API. So let's see, we have here a web API that says get weather. But what if it doesn't have the weather? What will return? So Microsoft, based on generics, he has invented this kind of syntax that at first glance it is somehow complicated. But what it says is that this function, get weather in range, it returns more results. How many? It's one, and separated by the comma. The second, you have results with 5 type generics. So it returns maybe a not found of string if we do not find the weather, or it returns on OK and an array of weather forecast. And you will see here that he says return typed results not found and return typed results OK. What is the difference between this one or an action result? It says clearly, and it says what the function it is returning. And for a programmer, after a bit of learning curve, he will see, okay, I'm returning a result, multiple results. One of results is a weather forecast array, and the other results is not found. And this is something that I think that you should adopt from ASP.NET Core 7, because again, for any programmer without looking in the code, knows what this function will return. More, it can say, you can say via Swagger to the front-end developer, look, this function will return this kind of data, either an array, either not found. And it's better like this to acknowledge the return of the function. So this was the first one, typed results. The other is shadow copy AS. So if you have sites in IIS, I do not have now. I have had like 4 years ago in IIS with .NET Core. Theoretically, I didn't try it, but I think that Microsoft says that it will be true. You do not have to put there an a shutdown file to replace the .NET Core. You can work on the site and he will replace the site when you update the DLLs. Again, I have not tried, but if I will have, I will try this definitely. Band arrays and string values from headers and query strings. And iParsable, try parse. Now, let's see the examples. Again, all of those are on GitHub and you can download the examples. In these examples, I have something that it's made with Blockly automation. We have discussed about low code. This is the low code for web APIs. So I will make the demo with the help of this automation. Let me refresh it. And I will make this try parse. So you know that now in .NET 7, an interface can have static members. That's very interesting because this try parse that you have found before in string.int.try parse or double try parse, now you can implement this iParsable try parse. Let's see the example. We have a get weather in range and we have a date range, F12, in order to go there. So the date range contains a from and a to. Imagine that you want to get from a database the records between from and to. But how do you know that the parameters will fit and will transform correctly to a date? And for this is this iParsable. iParsable of t, F12, it has this function, parse and try parse, that again you can find on int and double and under value types. Now we can have this kind of stuff here in date range or whatever code you want, and you'll see that this interface has a static parse and static try parse. How I have implemented? I have implemented like this. For parse, it says if you cannot try parse, then it's an argument exception that could not parse supplied value. And let's see the try parse. The try parse, I'll try to split the value provided by comma. So I transmit the two values, separated the two dates, separated by comma, and then I try to parse the date only. So the idea is that now we have the opportunity to parse the strings that comes from the front end any way that we want. Let me show the example. So this one, I try to load blocks, parse date range. Okay, this Blockly automation is transforming the API, the get weather in range that you see here, in blocks. So the function that it was get weather in range that you'll find here is transformed into blocks that you can execute. It's not the subject for today. If you want, we can speak a deal about this later. So now I will execute the function. I press F12 in order to see the network. And I execute the function here with execute. And you will see that I have the date that will be done. Let's put fetch. And now I can copy, open a new tab. And you see this date has been parsed between the two dates. If I put here like this, let's put the month 3 here. You will see the error. It's one or more validation occurred and says the value, this one is not valid. So it was the function get weather in range. It has a parameter that says from query date range, the class. So the class is constructed from the query, as you see here. Let's put it correct. Let's put the month. Okay, and when it's constructed, ASP.NET, if it has a iParsable. It goes to the parse and try to parse the values. And you can implement your own logic in order to parse the dates that you want or anything that you want by implementing the iParsable interface that again has the members that you already know for int and double parse and try parse. Okay, I will take the question last. Now I will go to the next things. So what is here is bind arrays and string values from headers and everything. Let's load blocks and just I want to see how we send array. So I have a function that says get weather for cities. The function get weather for cities, it comes with an array. And for the array, I just generate weather for and I put the city because I iterate between all the cities and I return the array. So let's see how it works. F12. Execute. So open a new tab here and open a new tab here. So for transmitting an array, you will see here that I have put cities equal book and cities equal CBU. It's two cities from Romania, doesn't matter. And you'll see that the response, it's an array with the two dates. And here I have the array of the cities. That is correct. Do not transmit with comma between them because it will not parse correctly. As you see, here it's an array, but it's just one object that says weather for and put the both cities. So in order to have the cities parsed correctly in a string array, you can put multiple arguments with an ampersand between them. What will be also interesting here is the rate limiter. The rate limiter, it is something that Microsoft has put from the scratch in ASP.NET 7, and you can limit everything by many criteria. Let's see how it works here. So here is the rate limiting. I have put also the links in my presentation, and you can limit by fixed windows, sliding windows, concurrency on token bucket, and you can make your own rate limiting feature if you want. What I will present is just the fixed window. So let's see the code first and then how we execute. So in program CS, we put app use rate limiter. If you do not put this one or you put the last one, you will not have a rate limiter. But it says use rate limiter. And I have defined into the services what will be the rate limiter. And my rate limiter, just for demo purposes, it says I have a fixed Windows limiter with just 20 permit limit per 5 seconds. So in 5 seconds, I admit just 20. If it comes more than 20 requests for my site, I do not permit and I will take later. And the option of queue limit is 20. So I process the 20 by 20 at the same time. The queue limit could be 5. And that means that from a 20 permit limit, I process 5 by 5 by 5 in the seconds that I put here. And see how it's working. The Swagger will not help me. Again, I will recur to this one, load blocks. And just let me close this rate limiter. The function that I will call for rate, just a moment, for rate limiter, it will be get data. Let's see how it looks, the get data. It's a very simple function. And get data returns that I have received the number I to a date time that it's there. So let's see how it works. Let's put like this, I do not know. Sorry, I have pressed F5. Just a moment to load the site again. Load blocks, rate limiter. Okay, So now I have like 50. So here it's a count of I from 1 to 50. In this block, you have also loops, repeat 10 times or everything. This is not the subject now. But I will call this function 50 times, increment by 1. And you will see what will be happening here in the network. F12, I have the network here. And I will press execute. So remember that we have the rate limiter of 20 permits, and the Q limit is 20, and for 5 seconds. So after 5 seconds, so if more request comes, after 5 seconds, we take the other 20. Let's see how it looks. I have put execute now. So you will see here that I have received 12, and you see here at the network this green line that shows that it was a timeout for this for 5 seconds. And here another timeout for 5 seconds. Why? Let's see at the results. So we have called the API until he's 20. And in this 20, you'll see that we have received on 50.04, and then it's a gap of 5 seconds here from 50.04, 50.08. So this is the gap after 20. He was saying, I do not accept more limits. I just do accept after 5 seconds, as I said here. Again, it's not just this fixed rate limiter option. There are more rate limiter options that you can take advantage. It's sliding window, token backend, concurrency. It's more than one. You must read the documentation and make your own rate limiter. What I have more for this, it's something that I have made a rate limiter based on course. So if it's the same site that makes the request, that it means that will be unlimited. If someone from outside tries to call my site, it will be limited. I have here the demo, rate limiter for course. So what I'm calling an external site, show output. Okay. I'm calling an external site that have a Swagger. And for this one, I am having rate limiter. Why? Because I'm on localhost and I'm calling the external API. If I'm calling the same site with this one, you will see that I will have not a rate limiter. So again, the rate limiter from ASP.NET Core, it's very flexible and you can use it however you want if you have something to rate limit your users or something else. And you see here that he has stopped on the step 3, and we have here count from 1 to 10, and the next one will come after, I think that it was a minute or something. I have put the rate limiter for external sites. Again, this is done with add rate limiter, but this add rate limiter, you can modify at your will, and even you can create a new rate limiter for yourself. Okay, this was the rate limiter. Also, you have a problem details service. I have used the problem details service before for one NuGet package. And this is something that you can handle the errors better and see the errors to the end. And this is for assessing if you have needs. So adopt, it's the iParsable try parse with shadow copy IIS and typed results that sees the data. And for trial, we have from Microsoft something that it's trying to put less code and says, okay, first we have in .NET 6 something that says from services some custom type service. And the new behavior says if you do not specify from where it comes like first from services, then from body that the user posted, then for path, and then for query. So if you do not put an attribute here, in order to know from where the function it comes, the parameter of the function it comes, of the web API, it will infer the order by these things. It is less code, but I'm just preferring the idea of knowing from where it comes. The second that you might try, it's request decompression. The request decompression, it's a middleware that it does what it says, is decompressing the data. So you can put add request decompression and use request decompression. And when your data it comes via zip files, he will be decompressed to the same value. This could be handy if you have to post the large files that by zip it will become less and do not want to unzip yourself. But again, I said that it is to assess, to trial. Again, there are more than those 8 things that I have mentioned here, and you should really read all the release notes from the ASP.NET Core 7. Okay, next demo. It's with Entity Framework Core. From Entity Framework Core, there are many advantages to use the Entity Framework Core. I want to close all tabs. And I have put in bold what will be the demos. Execute update, execute delete, reverse engineering templates, and all kinds of interchapters. So I will make a demo with reverse engineering templates. Let's see this. I'm trying to put the solution, Entity Framework Core demos. Let's say that I have a table. I have a table name employee and name test and department. So if we go to employee, you will see here the name, ID department, and salary. And for department, I have ID department and name. And let's try to add a new column to the table employee. Now we should modify the data from the employee table. So here is the department table with ID department name and employee. I have also employee. And this code is generated by Entity Framework. So what we have here, we have code templates for Entity Framework. So I have here the entity type. Entity type, he says, Andrei here is the entity name. So I put Andrei here as entity name, and for Armenia presentation. So as you see here into the department, it says Andrei here is the entity name. It doesn't say for Armenia presentation. I'll be running, sorry, this is just to see that the internet is running. Command, it says .NET Entity Framework DB context scaffold. The command you will find into the presentation that you can download, and here is the text. So it says .NET Entity Framework DB context scaffold. Here is the connection. After this is the provider. For me, it's SQL Server that I have here, the database. Then force in order to override without configuring, without pluralize. There are many things here. So when I send this command, I put verbose in order, the last parameter is verbose in order to see what is happening. And I put enter. Now he will go to the database and he will generate the table overriding the existing source code. So it says found primary key, found primary key, found foreign key, and here he shows what files he has overwritten. So now, if I go to department, it says Andrei here is the entity name for Armenia presentation. The scaffolding of Entity Framework Core, it was old, but now you can have also the templates, and you can modify the templates. If you do not like the name of the class, you can modify here and put something else. The code is made on T4 templates. I would prefer Razor, but that's life. And it's pretty easy to understand. It says public partial class, and it puts entity type name. So you understand that it's the entity type name that will be every table or entity from the database. Here it says for each property in get properties, it says code fragment data annotation is nullable. You can see and can modify this one and generate the code from database how you want. Yes, it will be a learning curve to learn these T4 templates, but it's something that I may recommend because when we modify something from the table, we can generate and will generate automatically the data here. And how you will do with your modification is very simple. The department that you see here, it's a partial class. Partial means that we can define another partial, and I put here my department, that is the public partial department. Just be attentive that the name should be the same with the namespace. So I have put here namespace entity framework core demos and department. Here should be the same namespace and department. And I have put another properties. I can write here any kind of code that I want. He will just, when executing the command, he will just overwritten these files. This overwriting is done by the parameter here. Just let me show you here. And it's the parameter that says ---- force. And with this, we just let him do his job and overwritten the files that we do not need is just the table to C# classes that will be done very quickly. Good. The second thing here that I want to present to you is execute update and execute delete. So let me run the site, Control F5. And what I will be doing is modifying the salary. Select top 1,000. So we have here an employee with the department 2 with salary 1 and another employee with ID department 3 and salary 1. And I want to modify the salary for this one. I have here an example, just a moment. Load blocks and execute update. So the function is execute salary increase. Okay. Execute. Just a moment. Salary increase. Okay. Do not do what I have been doing to utilize here the context and make the logic into the controllers. It's better to put in a separate DLL. But for the purpose of this demo, I have here the execute update. So what is doing here? I'm just filter the employees with the department IT. The department IT is the department number 2 here, the ID department 2. And then I execute an update. The execute an update is something that it's make of those two kind of arguments. The first is a set property call that says set property with a salary, and it says the new salary, it's salary plus add plus salary. So I am adding this one and put twice the salary. So I'm doubling the salary and put add. What is here is just the idea of having the original employee or original table, row in the table, and how do you want to modify the salary. So the first parameter indicates what is the property, and the second parameter is what value should be the property. And you see that I have added twice the original salary. So let's see how it's working. Execute. It says the demo has been done. And now if I run, I have salary 2 and 1. It has double because I have put the increase of 0, it was 1. So now I put 10, execute again. And now the salary will be 14. 10 plus 2 plus 2 means 14. So the idea is that you can execute update on something that it's in where. So where you put this with a filter, and you execute directly. So the difference that I see that is very important here between DB context that you modify is that this is the real update SQL that goes to the database, and the difference is that you do not call, and this should be very attentive, you do not call underscore context dot save changes, or save changes async. It is executed right away into the database. That means that if you have some entities that you have loaded the database previously, they may get been obsoleted when this executes, because this doesn't execute in the context when you say save changes and save all the changes. It executes right away without having the save changes attribute. Okay, if I set this execute update, the same with delete. So for delete, we have the same thing. It just says I have put an where and execute delete, and this will be delete where the data is from the department. I do not want to delete the data, but it's just for example. So now we can execute bulk delete and bulk updates directly on the database, and attention, without calling save changes. That means that also the database, the data that we have loaded could be out of sync. Okay, and the next one, it's all kind of interceptors. So now I want to show you load blocks, execute interceptor. So I have a function and says where it comes the retrieve date. Just see here that this function, it calls API departments and gives me ID department, name, employee, and the retrieve date is the date from today with an UTC. It's an UTC date. So if I execute again, it's 1306. Let's see. 1306.49, and I want to execute again, and should be different. 1306.556. So this property that I have is not from the database. So from the database, if I look into the department, it has no date. But in the my department, that is the public partial class, I have this retrieve date that it's not mapped. That means that it doesn't come from the database. So where it comes from and how it has the current date. So I will answer this question right away. There are many interceptors in entity framework. When you call something, when you read something, it is full of interceptor. In here, what's new? If we go to interceptors, you can, when you populate new entity instances, when you modify the link, when you have optimistic concurrency, you can have any kind of interceptors for anything. What I have done is the same. We have the context, that is this context, that it's made automatically by scaffolding the database with the instruction from this .NET Entity Framework DB context scaffold. And I have done my context that is again public partial in order to combine the two contexts. And on configuring, I have added an interceptor that it says new set retrieve interceptor. Take care that these interceptors are truly singletons for the application, but does not matter. Let's see why. So this set retrieve interceptor, it's an iMaterialization interceptor that says I will appear when something from the database will be materialized. And the imaterialization interceptor has a function, just a moment, that says initialized instance. The initialized instance, he has more than this one, he has creating instance, he has more. But what I'm interested here, it's an initialized instance, that one instance he has initialized. So I say if instance is add retrieve data has retrieved, what is here? So I have the class employee, my department, that I have an interface that says add retrieve date. This interface, add retrieve date, has just the retrieve date property. And in this way, I know that if the instance that I have retrieved from the database, it's an instance of add retrieve interface, I can put the date UTC now. So I put the UTC on every thing that comes from the database, and it's transformed into objects in C#. And then the interceptor will call this function in order to see. It is true that the interceptor adds some overloading to the data. It is true, but this is something that you should take care of and understand the pros and cons. But you can have any kind of interceptors. You can modify the SQL generator for the link expression trees. As you see here, you can modify the objects that are materialized in C# by the engine. You can have many kind of things that you can intercept in Entity Framework Core. I don't think that something has left, but we'll see in the next version. Also, what I want to say is that Entity Framework Core 7 has the possibility to work with ASP.NET Core 6. They say that you can use this like this. I didn't try it. I tried with .NET Core 7, but they said that you can use also in .NET Core 6. So this is the all kind of interceptors that I have put here, and you'll see the interceptors. There are many things that I want you to read. For example, the stored procedure map for create, read, update, delete. If you do not want the select, you can have stored procedure for this, or you can have entity modification, splitting an entity from C# into multiple tables. There are many things, and they said they have improved the support for Windows Forms. But I encourage you to read what's new and select what it seems for you that it's convenient. For example, I put here JSON columns that have improved the select and insert and update and delete. I do not have this kind of need, so I don't, but the execute, update, and execute, delete, the bulk execute, it's very interesting. And if you do not want to put and delete into the code, you can use these examples. So this was my presentation, and I tried to see if there are any comments here. Nope. Then I will stop sharing and saying for you, thank you for listening to me, and thank you for listening to what's new in ASP.NET Core 7 and Entity Frame Core 7. And I will try to put the link to the presentation and the code into the chat and synchronizer tool. Thank you very much.
Hey, Andre. So thank you so much for the talk. It was pretty interesting, and the stuff that was added in ASP.NET 7, it's intriguing because many of the things that you have mentioned we had to struggle with. For instance, like the typed results is the one that I was pretty excited about, because previously you had just one type and then you return whatever you want, and then the only way to notify the consumer of the API about those extra types was through documentation or Swagger comments. But now you can do it explicitly, which is quite intriguing. And I had a chance to write my own parsers for query string, converting them into objects, and now it's kind of coming out of the box. But the most important thing for me was the rate limiting. It was exciting, and there is one question that I have about it. So how about when you deploy an API with multiple instances? Let's say you have a Kubernetes cluster and there are like 10 deployments of the same ASP.NET application. How is the rate limiting going to work in that case? Is it going to be per instance, or there is some sort of a way to configure it at the top level?
I do not know if you hear me.
Yeah,
The
no.
question for you was on Kubernetes. And yes, I didn't work with this, but it's the same problem with microservices that are on multiple instances. So it doesn't matter if it's Kubernetes or not.
Yeah.
You say, how we make something that is idempotent to these microservices? And the answer is something that is simple. You use a central point somewhere. I don't think that you have another answer very fast for this kind of. So you can define your rate limiting that knows what will be the rate limiting from a database. And every time that a request comes, he inspects the request and says, for this kind of request, I have 1 or 2 more things to do. And yes, it will not be perfect because sometimes you will overpass the limit, but not with much. So my answer is find the central point and make your own rate limiter deriving from the rate limiters that inspects the data. I have made such a rate limiter again for course. So for inspecting the request and seeing if it comes from the same site or from external site. And the same you can do with this kind of rate limiter. You can inspect how much request you have allocated and increment those on the central database. So it's very flexible. Yes, it's again, everything from ASP.NET Core has a learning curve, but that's life. You cannot have flexibility and usage without a learning curve.
Yeah, so essentially what you're saying is you can tweak the rate limiting implementation for it to be distributed instead of bound to a single machine. The same way, for instance, you can do a distributed session with Redis, for instance, instead of using the like hardwired session that's bound to that single machine. That's pretty cool to hear, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, one of the things that I also think it's worth mentioning about the new stuff that's coming up with Net 7 is the performance of link queries. So did you have had a chance to look into it and see hands-on how good it has become? Andre?
I see. And here I just stopped the video for more time because my connection has some problems. And I see Stefan Taub that it's saying every time that it comes a new version of .NET Core that has improved the speed in .NET Core. Yeah. And it's a long blog that freezes my phone. My Chrome on my phone is freezing when I try to read this kind of stuff. I didn't have the time to investigate this, and frankly, I tried to say if Stefan Taub says that he has improved a lot the speed of .NET Core, I trust him a lot. So no, I do not have the time to make this kind of stuff. Did you have the time to see the performance improvements?
Not yet myself, but I'm definitely going to look into it because people have that always that feeling in the older days that .NET is slow. And I think that has dramatically changed since like 10 years ago. And with additional of Net 6 and now Net 7, it has become even more interesting to see that ASP.NET is very competitive in terms of performance and speed. So that's why I just wanted to highlight that aspect as well, because we see so many nice features being introduced to the framework, but there's also fundamental work that's being done in the core framework to make it faster, more robust, and more performant.
What I can say is that from Entity Framework Core 6, they struggle to improve the speed on which query were executed and objects were materialized. So they said, and they have proof, not just said, they have proof of data that are very comparable with Dapper. That was, okay, just an engine to materialize site data without interceptors, without nothing. So I think that Microsoft and ASP.NET Core team and the Entity Framework Core team are very serious about this in data and speed improvements. And I think that they will improve further in 8, but let's see. I expect another long blog post from Stephen Taub.
Yeah, definitely, Andre. Again, thank you so much for joining us and spending time with us. We really appreciate everything that you have shared. We hope you have a really nice rest of the day and hope to see you next time.
Thank you very much.